I think human beings are naturally creative. We've just innocently forgot. It's got to be belief in yourself as well, to think, accept yourself for who you are. Don't be something you're not, because if you try and be something else, then it's going to come across it. People are going to see it. Be true to yourself, and if there's something that inspires you to go and do something, go and do it. There's only you stopping you. Just, yeah, embrace it.
So welcome from London, and you're in Middlesbrough at the moment. So you are a transformational coach, and you have been working with NHS for the last 20 years and in different capacities. And for the last 3 years, you have been a coach, but last 2 years specifically, you have been working as a transformational coach. So how has it been? It's a long journey so far.
Yeah, it's been like, I felt like I've gone down different paths. I mean, being in the NHS was rewarding in itself, helping people, not coming poorly to when they leave, and that was the skill set that I learned. That was phenomenal communication. So, and I think in a way, over them 20 years in the NHS, when I learned my communication, it got better over time, because you have different people, different backgrounds.
Because you started as a healthcare assistant.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
And 14 of them years, I was in an emergency department.
Okay, so that was hectic.
Yeah, very hectic. And I think I was getting to a point towards when I was a healthcare, I was like, I'm not really feeling the vibe no more. Okay. And I wanted to do something else. And I was thinking, right, what can I do? And I'd heard of these guys, Simon Sinek and Tony Robbins, and I thought, wow, what they do is absolutely fantastic, the impact they have. And I think at first, the reason I got into it was probably selfish reasons. It was probably, make more money, do this, that. And
glamorous as well, isn't it?
Well, of course. And I searched on Google, and I found some on Groupon, came across this guy, hadn't really heard of him before, and there was an offer on to do life coaching. I was like, wow, great, I'll do that. So for the first year, I was learning this, and it was all about techniques. So it was like fast phobic cures, or if somebody had a certain problem, you'd help them fix that problem, so. But it was like, oh God, all these techniques, it's going to take a long, long time. And I know anything worthwhile doing, is good. And I was on this guy's emailing list, and I got a certificate after doing it. And it was about a couple of months after I'd completed the life coaching, there was another email come through, and it says, how would you like to coach people? Like as if you were in a coffee shop, over a cup of coffee, you could literally change their life. I was thinking, this can't be possible. Nothing's as simple as that. And I thought, it said, sign up for this free webinar. So I signed up for it, and it was on for about 90 minutes. And I was like, wow, this has blown my mind. I was just like, because it was talking about his journey, the trials and tribulations that went through on his life and that, and when he came across this understanding, how it helped him.
So what he was doing, did you get a glimpse of your favorites like Tony Robbins, Simon Sinek? Did you get a glimpse of that kind of work, that inspirational touches?
This was somewhat on a different level. It's like what they do is fantastic, and how they reach out to the audiences and things like that. It was inspiring.
Did you have to do NLP as well?
that was a bit in the life coaching part.
Okay.
There was a little bit of that involved, and I knew that was going to take a long time. But when I looked at this transformational coaching, it was literally sitting down with another person. And it was, you know, if you like having a heartfelt conversation with someone, but it's like without any fancy models, techniques, working from anything, getting them to do stuff. It was literally just a one-to-one conversation.
But isn't there some kind of technique involved? Say, for example, if you're talking with someone for the first time, to gain someone's confidence, why someone would open up and share with you their struggles and everything that's creating all this anxiety disorder or whatever they are going through. So there had been some kind of technique you need, but what's that thing that makes someone feel confident in sharing things with you or their private information?
Be honest and open with them. Just when you first come to meet them, introduce yourself like you would a friend. Ask them about themselves, get them to tell things about themselves, get to know them, be interested in them, not sat there with like a pen and paper, because if you've got a pen and paper, you're not truly listening to someone.
Exactly.
You focus.
That's why I don't have any. I'm just
Yeah,
totally hands-free.
that's it, hands-free myself. But you know what I mean? It's like we're building up rapport here. That's what you do with another person. You build up rapport, and if somebody starts gaining trust, don't have to divulge everything. It's a case of we'll get to things when we get to them.
Over a period of time, yeah.
But yeah, that's it. And it's just nice to see for the other person, and the fact they do the work themselves. There's nothing for. I'm just being a good listener. That's what I'm doing.
That was interesting because life coaching, what attracted me many years ago as well, as opposed to therapy, because you are getting the person who's in trouble and through their own mouth, they're discussing their problems, and they slowly, your job is just to let them talk so they can see the source of all the problems, where it started, and they will find their own solutions. That's the beauty of this technique, isn't it? So, but when you started looking for or looking up Tony Robbins or Simon Sinek, how did it happen? Why would you look for them? Or is it just a coincidence that on YouTube, suddenly one day it came up? How did it happen?
I think it was on YouTube. I'd come across and I'd heard these guys mention about other people, and I thought, I'm going to see what the fuss is about. So I'd looked them up on YouTube, and you could see audiences were packed out, and it was just like, and the energy from them. And I think, and especially in the last year for me, having more of an impact on people means so much more than anything material.
Definitely.
That might, you know what I mean? That means if I know I've helped a fellow human being, if I point them in the right direction and have heard something I've said, because it'll come with a feeling that, you know, that would be amazing to see.
So that's the idea of this podcast series as well. Say, for example, like any podcast, I was interviewing people, definitely still doing it, people who are highly productive. They have done, say, 20 years, 30 years of work behind them. But at some point, I started feeling I need to know more about people who are going through the trouble and people who are helping them, but probably they don't have the time to, say, promote themselves on Instagram and working. They don't have their whole media company who's pushing them forward, because everything, say, for example, yourself, you're helping people, probably hundreds of people you helped. And where do you have the time to do all those media activity, the publicity and everything? But the experience you have, the people you're discussing on a day-to-day basis and getting to know their problems, that's a great source of inspiration for people who are going through those troubles, just to find the solutions through this conversation. So my question to start with, say the podcast, we call it Knowing Who You Are. Since you're dealing with people, you get to hear the problem people commonly go through, and probably many times you find that they're quite similar in nature. So what do you think of this term, knowing who you are? What do you think of that?
I think if people, I mean, I love the way you're coming forward with, you know, the whole concept of it is fantastic.
Thank you.
And to think for knowing who you are, I think people need to first realize they're a human being first and foremost. You know what I mean? And people get busy minds, and this is where they become unstuck. When they get their busy minds,
Yeah,
they innocently forget who they are,
true.
and they get trapped in this little world, and they're thinking, I can't get out of it. But if that's where I come in, it's like to help them slow down and help them
Mm,
understand, you know what I mean? You are a human being. You've got capable of love. You've got capable of understanding, forgiveness. It's just throughout. So knowing who you are is, yeah, you're a human being first and foremost. You don't need any other labels attached to it. Whatever you want to be after that is
mm.
entirely up to you.
Just be yourself.
Exactly.
Very interesting point. You reminded me of Abraham Maslow. He has this term called impulse voices, which we have at the age of 6 to 8 months. But problem is that by the age of 16, due to our surroundings, classmates, teachers, parents, and all the surroundings, they give you a lot of information, because during those 6 to 8 months, that time you would just pick something you like, you grab at something, you don't care. What you do, whatever you feel like. But by the age of 16, due to don't do this, you're supposed to behave like this. This is your career choice. You shouldn't choose this. You have to get this degree, go to that university. So all these things, that voice gets confused. And most of the time, as you're talking about that, people at some point realize they have lost themselves. They used to know themselves at some point, probably they even forgot that they used to know themselves. So that's when you come in, or people like you, they try to help people. One thing you mentioned, that transformational coaching had made you see some of your own struggles that you have been through in life. We all go through, we have our own struggles. And sometimes it's like a epiphany moment. There's suddenly a light bulb moment that something comes up. Your childhood, is there anything significant that you feel that you could go back and change it now? Or you would if you could?
Not because the past is the past, it no longer exists. It's like history, it's a subject. We can only learn from it. You know what I mean? People say, oh, well, this happened in my childhood. You know what I mean? Yes, at the time it happened,
Mm,
it was
mm,
painful, it was horrible. But what people do at this, because all we ever have is this moment.
mm-hmm.
This is the only moment we have. There's no past, there's no future.
No
It's
regrets.
what we have. Yeah, and it's a case of the player memory. It's like
Yeah.
saying, you ever watch movies
Mm,
and say, if you watch a sad movie, you're going to feel sad. So that's like saying a memory from a childhood. If you
mm,
keep playing that same movie, you're going to feel sad.
exactly.
But the beautiful thing is, because as human beings, we've been given the gift of thought,
Yeah.
universal thought. But the good thing with thoughts are they're transient, they come
Mm,
and go. And if we could only learn, we can't control thought, but if we can only learn that if a negative thought comes in, we don't have to pay attention to it.
mm.
That's the power we do have to decide what thought to engage with.
Yeah. Is that gap between the stimulus and your response, the gap, that's where you decide what you're going to do, who you're going to be. So for in your case, the people you face every now and then and people you've been helping out so long, what is the common problem that you feel that people come up with and they face, and at some point that they feel they need help with, they can't control anymore?
It's they don't understand where their experiences are coming from. It's
Mm,
my job's to blame, or my wife's having a go at me, or it could be the kids are playing up, they're making me do this, and it's a case of if
so
you
blaming the
educate.
external sources rather than finding the reason inside.
Exactly, and that's where you get into a space. You just talk to them and get to. It's not to say, "Oh, you've done this wrong, you've done that," because if you start saying you've done this, you've done, they can feel attacked.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like saying, use it as human beings have been innocently conditioned to believe, so they feel, "Oh yeah, I'm part of the human race."
Mm-hmm.
But what people don't realize, people in the moment, they're dealing the best with the thinking they have in that moment.
Mm.
It's all they're doing. So it's not a case of it's right or wrong. It's the best what they've got in that moment.
Yeah.
And it's only with learning through that. Wisdom can happen in a second.
No, it's
Because
very interesting point you've mentioned. What you mentioned is that your past is past. So the present moment is the main thing that we have in our capacity, because the past that's gone, that used to be a present. You didn't have probably even the tools in your toolkit to handle those situations, and you are not really where you are now, because every one of us, we are exactly where we're supposed to be. Say you where you are, I'm where I am. Say for example someone comes to you, say they're always stressing about small things, and they're in the pangs of fragility all the time, being very fragile. Any small thing can upset them. How do you handle it? What's your first thought uh, to start the conversation with that person?
I I don't have a written script. It's all unscripted. What I do is I listen for a feeling,
Mm,
and when you listen from a feeling from someone, then it's a case of you might have a question for them. Asking the question, get curious. Always be curious about them.
mm,
Delve in, see if they know where their experiences are coming from, or and that's what the superpower is. It's you're listening. It's not
mm-hmm,
having a strategy. So I don't go there going, right, I've got a list of 10 questions here, because it could be a case of they go off and think, if I try and stick to a script,
mm.
then it's going to become disjointed.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's a case of be in the moment, be present with the other person. Don't have it, oh, coach client. It's two human beings having a conversation. That's all it is.
No, it's a very good point how you're finding your instincts through the conversation, because every human being is different. Their experience is different. So in this, at the same time, you are growing yourself as well as a human being. But the good quality, so looks like a transformational coach, what they have are the good qualities that a human being should have as well. Like you have to be a good listener, because this is most of the people, even sometimes I had been guilty of that too. Say someone is talking to me, I'm thinking, what's the next thing I'm going to talk about? Because he's saying that, I have to add my thing and I want to say that. And you're like, you're chomping at the bit. So you're not listening properly, because I'm waiting for you to finish so I can say that. So this listening, when you have been through transformational coaching, I find you're very calm and collected. But at the same time, we all have those, because sometimes they say, okay, visualize the situation. When there's some kind of negativity going in your mind, visualize something positive, the opposite force. But then every now and then when you start talking, our visualization process is always interrupted by the other person because they have to say something. So, how did you calm that tendency down? If you had that, or you already were a very good listener, then it's a blessing.
No, it's a case. I'm like any other human being in the world. I get my moments, and it's doesn't. I'm not immune from all my emotions. I still shed tears,
Mm,
still have joy, sadness, still feel pain. And don't get this week at work, I had some frustrating situation. I was like, oh my God, what's going on?
yeah.
That's not the, we react in the given moment.
Mm-hmm.
When it's the aftermath of it's like, right, it's over with now. It it takes for me, it takes practice to do. I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not 100% in the moment. Nobody ever is. My
Nobody.
mind, my mind drifts from time to time. So it's like saying, yes, I'm like the rest of the human race. I'm a human being. I still get caught up in my own little dramas from time to time. But the beautiful thing about it is with going this learn that I've been doing now, what I've been is unlearning.
Mm,
So like our beliefs, what we've been conditioned with over the years, it's like saying, is that actually true? And it's like you question, and it's the good thing because you can actually, so whatever beliefs you've been brought up, what have you, you can actually, what is that actually true? What mum and dad told me, what teachers told me, what friends
mm.
told me about beliefs. So it's entirely up to you. You can be curious and thinking, is it true? Can I go and look for something else?
So, for you, when did it happen? Do you remember the first time you had any doubts like that growing up? That, oh, this is what I've been told, but it's not like that. It's completely the opposite.
I think primary school, but especially when I was a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
it's you have to work hard. You've got to get good grades if you want a good job, things like that. And I was one of these at school. I wasn't a very good listener. I got distracted easily. I was more interested in playing football, going to do all the fun things. For me, sitting down, looking through books and was a big no. It was, I'm bored with this. I need to go on, and I think in a way, I'd probably say I went through the hard way. Went
Yeah.
through apprentices, tried different jobs, wasn't thinking, didn't know what I wanted to do with my life.
Well,
And then, it's like a lot of people,
for many people, it doesn't even happen in a lifetime.
yeah. So it's not like suddenly one day I woke up and just went, guess what? I'm going to be a coach.
Yeah.
It was, and I didn't suddenly just say, oh, my listening skills are really spot on. It just, I still make mistakes like any other human being does. But the thing is, we learn from them. That's what it's all about. You go through life, you make mistakes. But what a lot of people innocently do is they punish themselves. I used to be a big one for that. Emotionally punish myself if I'd done something wrong.
When you say that you used to punish yourself, I believe many people go through the same process. So people who are listening now, people who would be watching on YouTube, so I want them to know, and so they can relate to it, what kind of problems we all go through.
Yeah, it would probably be a case of if something went wrong, I'd get angry, frustrated, I'd shout, I'd swear, or I'd storm off. I'd be like, going for a walk, I've had enough, and then be like, literally 10 minutes after having a walk, it's like, why have I been like that? But I think for a long time, my teenage years, 20s, I think I was a very, very angry person. It was I'd fly off the handle, and probably because I had a lot of thinking going on. I was thinking I'd failed at something and that, but I still get my moments now. Life's a contact sport.
Yeah.
So you're going to get your knocks and what have you. And I think for a long time, it was like when I was getting knocks, it was like, oh, not again. And I'd get angry and frustrated and thinking, why is this happening to me? And then when I came to this understanding, this, how it helped, and it was just like, I'm actually torturing myself.
What about the people around you at the time? Say your family members, your parents, they're seeing that, okay, David is a bit angry. He gets upset quickly. How did they handle it?
To be fair, my mum and dad, they were fantastic. They probably got frustrated with me a lot of it, but they were like a rock for me. Parents would, you know what I mean? They could have easily just like washed their hands of me, had enough, but no, I've always got a lot of time for my parents. They were amazing.
That's very important.
They still are amazing, and they're always still there for all of us.
Because I was speaking to a 20-year-old guy today, and he has decided to he's opening his own gym, and he's in Kuwait. So I'll be interviewing him very soon. The thing is that he has left his home. I mean, his house, his parents' house, because he couldn't take it anymore every day. Because how it started, he was sharing with me when he was very young. Say if he was bullied at school, he would come home and he would probably share with his mom. And the mom would be like, well, nothing happens, one-sided. So what have you done? So that's the approach. And he felt very soon there's no support system for him. So he was like, what's the point of having a family like that? And then he's saying that ever since I left home, I'm trying hard to miss my parents, my home, but I'm not. This is so sad. And he is 20-year-old. And he said that I'm going to talk to them because their idea is that what I'm doing is not right for them, because what they want me to do to become an accountant or a lawyer or a doctor, but I want to be this. This is my core skill, and he's really good with this. He started at the age of 17, 16, and his story is amazing. It will be coming up very soon on the podcast. But these are the things during those age when you need some support system around you. Many people, this is how. He was lucky that he stayed the course and he stayed in the right path. But for many people, they get lost. Because when you feel that there's no one you can share and probably that's when you can help as well for people. I mean, transformational coaching, that when you see people like that, they feel like they have no hope. There's no one to listen to. I mean, no one would listen to them as well. Have you ever work with younger people?
I've not worked with the younger ones, man, but I think it's probably been people more my age who have a conversation because I don't. It's been voluntary that I've primarily done it.
Okay.
So there has been a couple of young lads in the 20s. It was on a network thing that I went. So it was on a group called Heartfelt Presence.
Mm-hmm.
So you went on as a volunteer, and you didn't know if anybody was, if it was going to be a group of people showed up, or if it was going to be one person showed up.
Okay.
And I remember I had one young lad showed up. He was from America. I can't remember whereabouts in America.
Mm.
And we just started having a conversation. And he was on about he recently had a diagnosis. He didn't tell me what the diagnosis was, and it was irrelevant.
Mm.
And he said, from what I've been doing, he'd been learning off friends about it. Call it the three principles.
Okay.
So that's what it comes under. And he just wanted to, and I said, well, I said, let me ask you something. I said, this condition you've been diagnosed with, I
Mm.
said, is because you've been learning about these three principles in the past year. Did you think it was going to make you bulletproof and think, oh, I'm going to be able to just push these emotions and deal with it?
Mm.
And he went, I never thought about it like that. I said, even with this understanding, you're not immune from your emotions. You're
Mm.
still entitled to have your emotions. And whatever you've been diagnosed with does not define you as a person. You are still a beautiful human being, capable of doing whatever's you want, whatever's physically capable for you.
Mm-hmm.
Up in your mind, you've still got your mind. That, you can still, if you like having a laugh with friends, you can still have a laugh. Your whatever you say your diagnosis is not who you are.
Exactly. Yeah. So what you're saying is that over time, because your responses, that's a matter of habit, because the sympathetic responses that happens on a autonomous nervous system, that just happens. And we have no control over it. But only thing we have control over is the reaction. When the trigger happens, how you react to it. Say you had been, short-tempered at some point in your life, and slowly, even probably before you had become a coach, you had taken control of that short-temperedness. So what was your exercise? What kind of habits that you worked towards, and how did you control that? What was the process?
I think at times I realized how draining it was when I was getting angry.
True.
So I don't think I had any special. I think it was a case of try listening to music, try
Mm.
distracting myself, and I think I used. I've got a very good friend of mine. When things went wrong, I could see how he dealt with it, and I thought, I'm going to try that. Thinking, okay, you get annoyed and then thinking, I just forget about, get on, do something else. And I think in a way it did help. Just try and emulate what he was, not to be
Mm.
like who he. It was because he's a really good lad, very funny, easy to talk to. And I just thought he's always chilled out. I
Mm.
want to be more like that. So I just think I'm going to start trying to take out a leaf out of his book and just try and be calm in situations. It took me a while to get there,
It proves the
as you
point
do.
because they say when you are on a path, you need to keep a company who would help you keep you, be in that path, even though unknowingly he had done that for you because he already had that built in, that
Yeah,
characteristic. But sometimes you consciously, you have to make that decision because as they say, you can't change your friends, but you can change your friends. You won't be able to change the other person, what they're like. But the thing is that you can decide that whether you can change that company and what would be helpful or align more with your vision. Do you see the usefulness of habit or the people you deal with? Do you try to direct them to a certain set of, even though you are quite technique averse, you didn't like having particular techniques all the time rather than have a heartfelt conversation. That's what you wanted to start with. But there are certain techniques that you have to slowly get them to start. Do you think, do you believe in that, or do you help them into building any kind of technique?
I think to give it. the way I look at it and what I've been taught is if you give somebody a technique, you're adding extra onto them for something to think about.
Mm.
Whereas what I want to do is take
Mm.
away the extra thinking. Because if you get somebody into a place of a quiet mind,
Mm.
this is where your wisdom kicks in. This is where you get your answers. It might
Very,
not be
very
in
nice.
might not be in that second.
Mm.
It could be later in the day. It could be a week. It could be a month. It could be a year down the line before you get your answers.
It's about creating
It's
that space in their mind.
exactly. So
Declutter.
I don't want to be learning techniques to add in to give them extra thinking.
Mm.
Because say if I said to you, right, what I want you to do is I want you to try this technique over the next week and then come back and let me know. And you could think after the first 2 days, I'm bored of this. And you think, oh, I'm getting frustrated. And you could come back to me and say, I'm not happy. It's
Mm-hmm.
just not what have you. But if I say to you, right, what I'd like you to do is, so say with our first session together,
Yeah.
and you've got to say, what I'd like you to do is, I'd just like you to notice any negative thoughts that you've got. When I see you next week, if you don't do it, it's not an issue. It's not set in stone homework. It's a case
Mm.
of see if you notice any negative thoughts and see how you respond to them. And then when you come back the next week, just say, so how did you get on then? What was it like?
Mm.
And if you say, oh, I forgot all about it, just say, you know something, that is absolutely fine. Because at the end of the day, it's about the person in front of you, what they want to achieve. It's not about what I want them to achieve, because it could be
Mm.
anything they want. But if they get to a place, they get content in themselves and they get to that calm space and then they realize my problem's not actually a problem no more.
Beautiful. It's very nice how you said that, just to declutter their mind, so they can start having that sense of calmness, so where they can start thinking, and to get that understanding. That's very nice. So, you are a big reader as well. I take that you love reading.
I
And
do love reading, yeah.
so, what's your favorite book, or a book that you would suggest to people normally?
A book that I read recently was a book called Dear Liza
Mm.
by Sydney Banks. And that was it was full of gratitude, wisdom, the love that was in it. I was in floods of tears after it. I don't
Wow.
mind admitting. It just taught me so much about vulnerability and just being grateful for what you have in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And
So, do you get inspired by some book, and then you learn something from there, and you feel like what the emotion that it has evoked in you, you can do the same by sharing some of the wisdom that you have gathered from that book? Do you do that sometimes?
yeah, I mean, I'll put a couple of things that I've had so on Instagram. I'll
Hmm.
put because sometimes I get things that just come to me. I see an image and I get things that and it just pours out. So I'm just like, right, oh, I'm going to put this. If people like it, great. If not, that's cool too. It's
Is
not about
there?
being popular. It's a case of I just want it. And if people get something from it and enjoy it, that's brilliant. And if they
That's
want
what
to
it is.
learn
I mean,
more,
normally when you start by this goal, the pressure of this goal, that many subscribers, that many followers, that many views, because then you're totally detached from the process. Then, because you start there and you want to go to the point of significance, start from the point of survival. When you start, literally you're surviving. I mean, even in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, life has been so far, it's an interesting journey to a certain extent. And doing the same thing for 18 years, it's a wellspring of knowledge as well, and wisdom in your own way, because there are a lot of things you have to deal with, and especially working in emergency. By the way, what's it like during the weekends in Middlesbrough, where you have been, how tense it was, or how busy?
uh, probably the same as during the week. Doesn't matter if it was a Monday or if it was a Saturday, it was still the same intensity. It was
Okay.
you still get your emergency because it's been an emergency department. It never sleeps
Mm.
24/7. It was yeah, you get patients coming because you don't pick the time of the day or the time of the year that you're going to be poorly or have a serious injury. It could change
How
in
did it work to build that stress muscle in you, like to deal with stress, because that's a stressful condition, and you've been working for like 8 9 hour shifts, so What was it like?
12-hour shifts.
12-hour shifts. So just
Yeah.
imagine that pressure. How did you handle that? And how do you come home? Then your family, they have to, I mean, what was it? If you could give us a picture, and what was it like?
I think separating the stress and family life, I did struggle with that for a while. Because some of the things that I seen were horrific. And I did learn to just think, right, I can only do one job at a time, even in like emergency situation. I didn't really think of it as stress at the time. When it was an emergency situation, it was a case of, that's my job, get on with it, do it. And it was just autopilot. You got on with it. But I think at times, and yeah, I mean, hats off to my partner. She was absolutely fantastic. I did come home and I still was really stressing. Well, and I used to think, oh, having a couple of beers will chill me out. I didn't want to talk about anything because I had this thing about being vulnerable, not be stoic, keep everything pushed down, and just and
That's the
actually
worst, suppressing your emotions, right?
that was me Achilles heel.
Yeah.
That did cause problems, but fair to my lovely partner, she stuck through with it with me, and she's been like a tower of strength, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Is there anything, sometimes they say that you can copy what they're doing. They're even, you can impersonate their characteristic. So they can see, oh my God, this is worse, and this is what I'm like as well. So what was her thing? I mean, definitely she has something about her character that it helped you, which she even didn't do consciously, probably.
I think she did leave it because she said, "Do you want to talk about it?" And if I didn't, she'd say, "I'll leave you to it. To let me get on with it." I'd have a couple of drinks, and I'm thinking, "Oh, this is relaxing." Until I later learned on saying, "No, it was actually just my thinking that was getting in the way." How I was thinking, "Oh, it was the outside world that was causing me to feel this way." No, she probably had a moment where she wanted to tear her hair out, thinking, "Oh, what's it gonna be?" Because she did say sometimes it'd be like, "Oh, didn't know what sort of mood I'd be like when I come home." And I'm thinking, and I thought, yeah, I can, because how my tensions levels used, because I used to feel pain in my neck and in my shoulders from all the tension that I've had. And I've not had that in about 18 months. Not felt that tension in my
But are
neck.
you, are you still working for the emergency department?
No, I do admin now. So I do a service
Okay.
called the Diagnostic Virtual Ward. I've been
Okay.
doing that for nearly 2 years now.
All right.
So
So that
yeah,
helped as well.
well, I'd already left A&E
Yeah.
before.
Okay.
Then this is when I started having the changes in myself. Nothing to
Ah,
do. I think it was just when I started learning more about this coaching, and just because we'd have like a Facebook Live most weeks in the group.
okay.
So it was and I just found listening, because he said, forget about trying to get it into the intellect. It's beyond the look for the feeling.
Do you do relationship coaching as well, or counseling? Anything like that?
No, my primary niche is relationships. So not just necessarily people who've been married or couples. It could be people who've got, like with a relative, family member, friend,
Okay.
work colleague. If they get an understanding, like, you
Mm.
know, comes to them, it could change the whole dynamics, because it really
Okay.
only takes one person and if somebody sees a change in somebody else, it's like, okay, right. And it can actually, not saying makes things perfect, because still in my relationship, I'm being my partner for 12 years, and we still have our moments. That's
Yeah.
life, that's relationships.
Exactly.
But I would say our relationship is a lot stronger.
Mm.
I think it's just from what I've gained an understanding of,
Mm.
and just how the mind works. And I think in relationships, a lot of people think, say you've got your bad habits, we'll call them.
Yeah.
And for some people, it starts to become an issue. But if you learn to forgive each other for your little minor bad habits,
Mm.
then it's not an issue no more.
Yeah, because we idolize, say, for example, everyone has this dream about this perfect partner. It could be a woman, it could be a man, but we don't realize once you start spending time with them, because when you go on a date, you don't get to see it all, because everyone has this, the best look, the best clothing and everything. And then when you start spending time with them, but trying to accept that on a human level, that everyone has those flaws, including the person who's judging the other person. When the problem happens, probably the sources are the same, the reasons are the same. What do you think the main source of the problems that you people normally face in a relationship? What are those sources? What are the reasons?
Building up a story in the head. I mean, it could be anything that's happened, and they're replaying the same story in the head, and they're just not allowing that to go, and they're allowing this story to embellish. It develops, it
Mm.
gets bigger. It's like, oh, it's the worst thing happens. Like the whole sky's falling in, and it could be something just. But instead of going, all right, that's happened, move on. They like to thinking, oh well, do you know what you done last week? You still done that, but you're thinking you're bringing that up from last week.
Mm.
So it's a case a lot of people innocently do that. They keep telling themselves the same story for what somebody's done,
And
and it's
also, you
because
probably are writing a story in your own head when it's not happening, even you're imagining things.
yeah,
Why did he do that today? What was he trying to tell me? His words, okay, I think he was trying to suggest this, or she was trying to suggest that. So that kind of thing, the story is very important. I mean, it's a very good message that you are conveying. And I feel that every now and then people go through that. I mean, in every relation, whoever had been in any kind of relation, even between friends, why did you say that? Everyone, so sometimes, and they think that you said that for this particular reason, while you didn't have any intention like that at all. Main problem is that in relationship, people go through things like that. They don't even ask each other, that they don't have a proper conversation, like peacefully with patience, but you just take it for granted. Okay, this is why he did that. Okay. And you're festering, passive aggressive, and all the other symptoms that you see. So if you have to give an advice for people in any kind of relationship, what would you tell them? That one first thing, if they are mindful about, they might find some peace of mind, have a strong bonding. What would you say?
I don't think there's any magic thing for a relationship, but the way I look at it is love, understanding, and forgiveness. I think them three play a key part in a relationship, and the way I look at it is treat whether it's uh, your partner, your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whoever, have them as your best friend. Share
Mm.
everything, communicate, because nobody's a mind reader.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. You say, well, you should know what I'm thinking. It's like, should I? It's like, really? Come on.
Yeah,
And I
it's
think it's
it's
a
not
case of,
about winning; it's about being kind.
and I'm not talking so much about forgiving the other person, but it's forgiving yourself,
Mm.
because a lot of people innocently forget to do that.
Give an example. Say, for example, you're with a partner, or someone is with a partner, and I mean, you are not, because we already know she's amazing. So I'm not even going to bring her as an example. So say there's one person, he or she is married to another person who is quite inconsiderate, a bit suspicious, and creating the stories in their mind. So, according to what you just said, the person who's the victim would have to every time forgive themselves. But when they're not doing anything, I mean, how should they approach it? Because they are not guilty. Without doing anything, they're getting convicted every time they're getting, his character assassinated and everything. So, what would you suggest?
We all make mistakes in life. So one thing with human beings, we're all scared of imaginations.
Mm,
That's what's Our imaginations are brilliant. They run wild. But it's a case of what the difference between your imagination and reality, what is actually happening, rather
mm.
than what you're picturing is happening. So I don't think there's any really advice I could give, because it depends on the situation that
Just a
they're in.
thing that they can be mindful about. Say you definitely had said something. I mean, if I repeat it, which is more about being kind, more love. People try to win, even in a relationship. You're like, okay, I was right, you were wrong. That's the thing people go through most of the time. The problem is that someone has to be right, someone has to be wrong. What I find that it's very confusing and also complicated, because then you're letting the other person win every time you're being kind. But what if that other person takes it for granted and takes advantage of the situation? Okay, he's quite easy or she's quite easy, so I can always keep on doing it. No consequences.
I think if you've got boundaries in your relationship, so, but that's up to the individuals, what you're prepared to accept, what you're not prepared to accept, because we'll call it rules and expectations. We all set them for ourselves. What's acceptable, what's not. Everybody's an individual. Everybody's different. I'd heard a story. He said it was my mentor. He was listening to his mentor and said a woman had come to him, and on the odd occasion she'd been hit by her husband. And he went, well, what do you want to do about it? Because he said it's usually sometimes after he'd have a drink. And she said, well, it's not that he's hit me, that's the problem. She went, I understand he gets frustrated and he lashes out. She said, it's his infidelity that I can't cope with. So you see, we've all got different, what we accept as boundaries, as rules, expectations. It's entirely up to them. We're just there to help facilitate. If the presenting problem coming in, it's not a problem, and it's to help them to see that. And they've got the tools within themselves, because everybody's born with the tools in themselves to get themselves through whatever's going on in their life.
Because there are situations and the stories I've heard, I've seen, and sometimes we speak from our own experiences in life, that you have met people that I try to be, my practice is trying to be kind with people, but sometimes your kindness can be misconstrued as a weakness, as a sign of weakness. So in situations like that, when you see someone, if you, the advice, they're thinking that they're being kind, they're being considerate, but still it's not working out for them because the other person is not seeing through and they're not appreciating it, taking it for granted. In a situation like that, if someone comes to you, what would you tell them?
I think it's a case of, it's to let them know, regardless of what happens in the relationship, whether they stay together, they don't stay together, that person will be absolutely fine. It's to know you're going to be absolutely fine. You've got the tools within you to get through stuff. Because if they're in what we'll say a toxic relationship, and they're both pulling out and nobody wants to give way, and it's ending up in divorce, it's, if that person's come to see me, I'm not there to say, oh yeah, you should do this, do that to get your marriage back on track. If they're going to be, they've gone down the divorce route and it's on what have you, it's to say to the person, it's to let them know, and get them to understand they're going to be fine. It's,
end of the day, it's their well-being, that's what matters.
Yeah, it's the well-being. So it's not about, when I say relationship, it's not about fixing anything, because nothing's ever broken, because divorce, relationship breakups, they do happen in life. It's a part of life. But to let people know, saying it doesn't have to be a problem. You can get through this. You human being, you know what I mean? Just because something,
get on.
You've got a result, not the result that you want. It's ended up in divorce, but you're still a human being. You're still capable of love. You're still capable of forgiveness, understanding, being compassionate, being kind, being generous. You're a human being who's still got all these capabilities. It's within you. Yeah. It's just, you're going through a time at the moment that you're not enjoying. And I'm not here to say, oh yeah, tomorrow morning you are going to be laughing all. It's just helping them understand, to see where they are.
Yeah, once they will go through that, then they will have to probably call upon different kinds of resilience in them. And that's another practice, So last year you said that during the pandemic, probably it's been the hardest as well, what you have seen, because it's something that many people never experience in their lifetime. Like for me, that was the first time something of that epic level. So what was the main problems that you had to deal with, and what made it so difficult?
I think it was just a natural. You've seen a lot of people stressed, anxious, depressed, stress, anxiety, depression. It was just the main three things that they were going through, because it was the unknown. Nobody knew about it. People are afraid to go out, or it was They didn't know anything about the vaccine. They weren't confident with it, and I can't see people. So, and I think because the people I worked with in the office, I said, okay, we've been putting all these restrictions, but I said, we've got a lot going for us. I said, compared to people in the Second World War, we've got technology. We can talk to our families still, mobile phones. If you've got Zoom, if you've got Skype, we've got that. I said, during the Second World War, it was all handwritten letters, and God knows when they would receive it. They didn't know what was going on. I said, we can reach out to other people. We can have a conversation with other people, you know, because when you see the adverts, Britain Get Talking, it's like, yeah, if somebody's on their own, go and have a conversation with them. You know, find out how they're doing. Don't let anybody struggle. And I think where I worked in that, I could hear one of the women in the office going, oh, this is causing me stress, this is causing me that. And I just stayed silent because I thought, it's not my place to say to her, no, this is not, because she doesn't need fix. She's in a place where she is. She's not asked for my help. So I'm not there to go in who's the rescuer. Let her deal with it how she sees fit. That's all I can do.
You being a human yourself, I mean, being a transformational coach or for any coach, it doesn't make them immune to all the things that other humans are suffering, the uncertainties and all the stress that comes with it. How did you deal with it, or what was the stress that you are facing at the time or feeling? Because you definitely were worried about yourself and your family.
Definitely. I mean, I had a few anxious moments, insecure moments, thinking, oh, what's going to happen? Is my family going to be all right? Couldn't get to see my parents. My partner couldn't get to see her parents because they don't live on our doorstep. They're a couple of hours away, drive to go. So it wasn't a case of, oh, just pop round. Yeah, we had almost like every other human being, but it was a case of we can only deal with what we're presented with. And we got to one point and said, we've got to stop watching the news because my partner was going, oh, this is and I said, right. I said, enough's enough. Let's stop watching the news because we're getting wound up. It's not doing us any good. Why don't we find things that we can do?
True.
You know, keep us going. And I said, wasn't perfect every day. You still got your moments where it's like, because I even came from work one day and I said, God, I feel like I'm on a treadmill here. I thought, getting up, going to work, coming back home, having tea, going to bed. And I felt like that for a while. I was like, because I'd got out the habit of doing a bit of exercise and I thought, I'm going to start exercising. I'm going to start reading. Oh, how can I work on my business? What can I do? Can I get into that? So I tried to be a bit more creative, you know,
I mean,
try and keep yourself
that's
going.
what the idea of resilience as well. They say that there are certain things, meaningful things, when you start doing it, then you can build up that resilience, say engaging more with your community. If you like doing photography, probably in my case, music is one thing, reading, writing is one thing. The moment I get myself distracted with those meaningful pursuits, then I forget about it. We are quite negativity biased. So we always think about the negative things first. And definitely, I always talk about this. I ask people the same question. We all have the negative voices, which would tell us that you're not good enough. You can't do this. What are you thinking? No, stop it. And things like that. So definitely during those, the last year, during the pandemic, you had those voices in your head. And probably in a day-to-day life, every now and then you face with it. How do you deal with that? And what's your suggestion when people get that? What should they do?
I think for me, because I've been fortunate to realise that is in the moments, if I do say have a day somewhere I'm going a bit in my mind gets busy, it's just like a case of, David, just shh, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to take any act. Don't do it. So for me, to know where my experiences are coming from,
Yeah.
and that, yeah, I do get caught up in the moment where I have me down days, because you cannot be firing on all cylinders 24/7. It's just not physically possible.
No.
Just from time to time, it's just a case of just quiet yourself down. Just take yourself away from things and
But what can
or
they do normally? I mean, what do you follow? What do you do during those moments to quieten your mind?
I mean, sometimes it won't be a case of being quiet. I like to watch international rugby. So if there was a game on, so let's say the Six Nations was on, I'd watch that. Distraction, reading.
Mm.
It's just taken away from if you've got say your negative thoughts going on. Right, I'm going to do a bit of reading, and then you're thinking about something else. It was a case of I'll distract myself. It's whatever people say to people, whatever you gives you enjoyment,
Mm-hmm.
do more of it if you can, and do the things you love.
And you mentioned at some point, I think when during one of our conversation earlier, that body image was a thing that probably you used to think about that. And how did you deal with that?
I think it was when I was in my teens and early 20s, because I used to have the belief if I wasn't 6 foot and ripped, full of muscles, I couldn't be happy. So I'm 5'6", and but it was just in my mind. I was telling myself, and
Mm.
and then just thought, well, no, actually, I can be happy. I don't need to be 6 foot. I don't need to be full of muscles because I can still have a laugh with people. I can talk to people. And I
How
thought,
did it happen? When did you realize that? What age? What did it take?
oh, might be later than what some people rate. Probably my early 30s when I thought I'm good enough as I am.
Hmm.
I'm happy with that. I'm fine with it. Yeah, it can still get you off days and that way you feel a bit, but it's just like
Yeah.
just a moment you're having. But
Especially during these days of social media, Instagram, selfies, we are so much about this. I mean, men and women, they both go through the same kind of trouble. And sometimes people forget about the reason why they should go to the gym. Is it because you want to look good or because you want to feel good? So that's the difference. So for you, when it happened, I mean, you just decided what there was there any contributing factor that you had a supporting surrounding from your family life? You have a loving wife or your children. They're giving you that confidence to think that we are happy with you and you are enough for us. Was it that?
my partner's always told me since we've been, she said I wouldn't change anything about you, and I
Mm,
was just like, wow, you know what I mean? It's like that's amazing to hear.
mm,
It's and yeah, it does give you, it makes you feel good,
mm.
appreciated, and that. And it's just like, yeah, I am good, but it's got to be belief in yourself as well to think, accept yourself for who you are.
Mm.
Don't be something you're not, because if you try and be something else, then it's going to come across it. People are going to see it. If you can embrace who you are and show up who you truly are, be true to you, people will see that and it will attract people around you. They'll want to know more, they'll want to learn more, they'll want to be with you and be in your company.
Because if you're not comfortable
Mm.
with yourself, people can read that. I mean,
Yeah.
unknowingly, they'll tap into that and straight away they'll project. Because you are telling yourself, you are asking, and you feel conscious about it. Very, very well said. I always have this urge that I want to build new neural pathways. The neuroplasticity is one of the things I'm really interested in because that makes you resilient as well. Because when you deal with abstract ideas, you become creative with situations, then the uncertainty that stresses us out, you become stronger every time you practice something new and you fight with something new. I mean, in a controlled environment, not just asking for stress. Say, for example, I'm a guitarist, I sing, and I've been trained as well as an Indian classical musician. But then I started learning, okay, I have to start playing the bass guitar as well. Then, no, why shouldn't I play piano? Because I'm recording as well. So I need that. But then this reading, writing, I write poetry. I feel this creativity, it creates this, as I was saying, the neuroplasticity, it makes you flexible because we had this idea after the age of 20, slowly, you really can learn new things and it slows down, the process gets slowed down. So, what do you think the value of creativity, or what are the things that interest you, or do you believe in that, or do you try to learn new things every now and then, or take up that new challenge?
I think human beings are naturally creative. we've just innocently forgot. We're thinking, oh, we have to. You give a child crayon and paper, they'll just create. This will be every child who's got crayons. They'll just create something. It doesn't matter what. They just look. My 6-year-old son, if he wants, oh, he'll draw something. Oh, he's been at school and shows what he draws. And he's thinking, it's fantastic because and I always say to him when he goes to school, have fun, enjoy yourself, because whatever he learns he'll pick up different things as he gets older. And for me, I think I'm more into reading, and it's not about saying, oh, I want to say I'm intelligent, anything like that. It's a case of, with the books that I read, it's like, what feeling do I get from them? What does it give me? What inspiration do I draw from it? Because
it happens. It's a subconscious process as well.
Yeah, I'm just going from a lineage of people I'm learning from. I'm just learning from the best people I can be around.
That's the thing. If that's your creative process, like learning new things itself is a way of creating that plasticity. David, I can go on forever, to be honest. And it's been such a diverse conversation. We are going from subject to subject, and you had such interesting information. And also,
thank you.
Even though you don't like techniques, but I think at some point for people to, jot it down and put it together, if they practice, even like as a thinking process, it would come down to some kind of tools probably in their toolkit. So before we end, is there a message that you'd like to leave for the audience and the listeners?
Be true to yourself. And if there's something that inspires you to go and do something, go and do it. There's only you stopping you. Just, embrace it. And the challenges that come with it.
When you said embrace it, I remember that last week we did a live stream. My partner, she joins me on the live stream, Knowing Who You Are. And she coined a term. She was like, face it and embrace it. Because the thing is, stress, when it comes, one of our tendencies is to avoid it. But it won't stop. Because trying to safeguard yourself will never make you safe. It will come in one shape or another. Any shape or form, you can't avoid that. So David Hunter, I hope our listeners and the audience, they'll be benefited from this conversation. And if they want to find you, where they should look up?
Yeah, I've got my website, which is coachdavidhunter.com. Or look for me on Instagram at davidhunter5058. Look me up there, and if you want to drop me a message, have a conversation, that's absolutely fine. I look forward to it.
Perfect. So they can, even though you're at Middlesbrough, say someone from London wants to get in touch, they can do it virtually, online?
Yeah. Zoom call.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, then we'd like to end today's conversation, interview, whatever we'd like to call it. So David, you have a great time and great rest of the day, and hope to catch up with you again very soon.